Yeah, I'm not sure. He said he just unloaded it off the trailer, so. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the S3 Power Sports Shop. On today's episode of Getting It Done, we're going to walk you through how to change a front axle on your Can Am Maverick X3. All right, Manny, so we just rolled in a Can Am Maverick X3. Tell us what you got going on, what you're doing today.
All right, man, today we're going to change out the front axle on this thing and find tricks and tips to get her done.
Makes sense. So if you had to wildly speculate how this kind of thing happens...
Man, that just depends how much whiskey throttle you use.
Whiskey throttle equates to broken parts. Good to know.
All right, guys, I'm going to show you some stuff to get the job done easy and get you back riding. Now, if you're worried about being stranded on the trail, don't worry. This can be done with simple hand tools. So these are the tools that you're going to use for the job today. The only one you may not have is this 30mm socket. These can be purchased individually or online, so you guys need to get one of those and have them handy. Now, we're in a sweet shop today, so I'm going to use air tools, but for the guys at home, you can definitely use tools right out of the toolbox. Let's get this monkey wrenching. So we need to get the vehicle jacked up, but to make things easier on you, go ahead and break the lug nuts loose, because once it's up in the air, it's going to be hard to get them loose if the wheel's spinning. So now I'm going to bring my majestic assistant to help me jack this vehicle off the ground.
All right, so this is when Sammy, safety supervisor, has to step in. Safety first. You need to grab a log, a stump, a cinder block, or for us, a jack stand, put it under a solid part of the frame in case this thing falls with a tire off of it.
So now we got the lug nuts loose, go ahead and put them in a safe place so you got them for later. Get the wheel out of the way and I'll show you what you need to take apart next. It may look like you need to take a lot of things apart, but there's only a few easy steps you need to do to actually get the axle out. So first thing, you're going to pull the dust cap off to get access to your axle nut. So one thing you can do while you're in here is get your flathead screwdriver and go ahead and open up your cotter pin a little bit. Once you get your cotter pin a little flattened out, you can go ahead and tap it through and get it out your way. And then you can get your axle nut off. So this is where you need your good assistant. If your axle shaft is broke, you're going to need them to hold down the brakes so you can break your axle nut loose. So depending on the impact you have or the manpower, it's going to take a few ugga-luggas to break her loose. So with your axle nut off, a lot of people may think that you need to take the hub and disc off, but you don't. It's actually pretty easy to get to your axle. So now for the next step, you're going to need a 15mm socket and an end wrench to go ahead and take your lower ball joint and pinch bolt loose. You want to come in from the back side so you don't have to worry about your caliper being in the way. Now that you got your lower pinch bolt out, go ahead and break the lower A-arm away from the knuckle. If it doesn't come off that easy for you, you can use a rubber mallet, a stick. If you're in a 9-line bind, you get a rock, but you do got to get it off to get to the next step. We need to get the lower shock bolt out so we can pick our shock up and get it out of the way, and then that way we can pick our A-arm all the way up and get your axle out. You're going to need an 18mm socket and an end wrench. So if you got a lot of off-road miles, it's more than likely that the CV might be hung up inside the bearing. One way to help get it out is you can put your axle nut on backwards and you can beat it out with a rubber hammer or a stick. But the main important part of this is don't mess up your threads in case you're reusing that CV. All right, so now you can go ahead and get your lower shock bolt out. And you can let down on your A-arm. If you don't have a lovely assistant like Dustin Jones, you're gonna need a ratchet strap to hold up out of your way. So once you get your shock out of the way, you can disconnect your sway bar link and then pick up on your A-arm to relieve the pressure and go ahead and get your sway bar link disconnected. So you're gonna take your 18mm wrench and hold it back up and go ahead and break this 15mm nut loose. All right, so here's where the fun part comes in. You need as many hands and as much slack as you can to get this stuff out.
All right, Sammy, safety supervisor here again. There's a lot of pinch points when you're doing this, so don't get your fingers or anything between nothing that can pinch it.
All right, so you're gonna take your upper A-arm and knuckle and pick it all the way up so that you can extend the axle out the backside. Watch your knuckles. So pull your A-arm all the way up and pull back on your knuckle, and your axle's gonna come out the backside. So now comes the real fun part. So depending on the scenarios you have, if your axle's not broken, you still have a solid axle or you're just upgrading your axles, you can pull on this axle a little bit and twist in the driveline at the same time to help break the CV loose from the diff. So you're just slightly pulling back and putting pressure on it and twisting at the same time to kind of get it to break loose. But like most worst case scenarios, this one's hung in there, so we're gonna have to take a different approach at it to get it out. Since we're in the shop, we're gonna use a slide hammer to get it out easy. You wanna slide it in behind the CV, but be careful, don't mess up your axle seal. So this is definitely gonna be a tough part, and you might have to persuade some more than others. By wiggling it and hitting it hard, it will come out. And that's it. Now we just put it back together.
So Manny just walked you how to get the axle out of differential when you're in the nice S3 Power Sports shop with a slide hammer. But let's be honest about it. You're not always gonna have a slide hammer. You're gonna be in the woods with your buddies at an event trying to get this axle out. So after years of doing this kind of stuff and not having the tools I needed, I'm gonna show you a trick on how to get your axle out of your differential when it's locked up. Manny, can you power the winch out? So this is when I have my lovely assistant, Manny Fresh, help me out with this. So you're gonna wanna make sure you have plenty of winch cable out. And again, this can be your winch cable, this can be a ratchet strap, this can be a piece of rope that you find in the woods. So you're gonna wanna make a half hitch out of the rope that you can wrap around your CV that will tighten down on it. You're gonna wanna slide the rope all the way up to the inner CV as close as you can get it to the differential. So what you're ultimately gonna want it to do is tighten down on the CV so that you can pull the CV. So now is when you start scouring the woods for a stick, a log, anything that you can wrap around the rope. For us, we're just gonna use a hammer. So there's a couple of different ways you can do this. At the end of the day, you're just gonna wanna make a whole bunch of loops around your stick or hammer. Make sure you got plenty of slack from your winch side, but this one on the axle, it needs to be tight. Now it's time to take it to Pound Town. One is you can take it from side to side, rope between your hands, and just pull back on it, slip the CV out. All right, so this one's hung in there pretty bad. Time to Sammy Sosa this bad boy. Boom! She out. So that's really how you get an axle out of differential when you break it in the woods. Manny, power it in.
All right, so now it's time to go in with your new axle. A few secrets you can use to make the next job easier. You can lube up the end of the CVs with some anti-seize or old axle grease from the old CV, and you take your clip and point it open end towards the bottom so it's easier to get in the diff. You're gonna take the diff end of the CV and stick it inside the diff. Once you get your splines lined up, go ahead and pull back on the axle and then slam her in there. So if you're having a hard time getting the CV inside your diff, you can rotate and clock a little bit and twist. What you're doing is trying to feel the splines in the diff, make sure they line up. You don't want to push too hard before they line up so you don't mess up the ends. One of the most important parts of changing your axle is making sure that it's locked in the diff and all the way up in there. So you want to check the faces of the diff and make sure that they're almost touching each other, and pull back lightly and just make sure that it's locked inside. Once it's locked inside, now you're ready to reassemble and get back on the trail. So you're gonna get your axle back inside your hub, lower your A-arm, go ahead and reconnect your sway bar link. Now you can reinstall your lower shock bolt. Once you get your lower bolt back in there, now your assistant can take a break. Now you can move back down to your lower A-arm, make sure your ball joint goes all the way up. Go ahead and put your pinch bolt back in there. Now go ahead and take your axle washer and your nut and go ahead and get that back on there. And then you're gonna need your assistant to come back and hold the brakes for you so that you can lock her down. So reference your service manual to get the torque spec for the axle nut. But if you don't have that, 10 ugga-luggas how to get it just right. Now you can go back and double check everything, make sure you tighten everything back up, get your wheel back on, and you can get back on the trail.
All right, so that's a done deal. Manny Fresh walking you through how to change the axle in the shop and then showing you some tricks to do it if you're out on the trail. So if you guys want to see some more videos, go like and subscribe to our YouTube page. Keep watching because we're going to keep showing you how to get it done.